And hello YouTube, this is Thomas Judge, back once again with another episode of my ongoing weekly series, Valiant to the Last, in which I read every single Valiant Deluxe Edition hardcover, one at a time, for the first time. So, this week we're looking at Ninjak Deluxe Edition Volume 2. Now, last time we spoke about a small limited miniseries called Rapture, which was set after Ninjak Deluxe Edition 1. Having now read Deluxe Edition 2, I can confirm that you could read Rapture before this, or you could read Rapture during this or after this. It doesn't really make a huge amount of difference. It's very much a self-contained miniseries, as I suspected. So let's look at this one. This is Ninjak Deluxe Edition Volume 2. Usual top banner. Nice image there in the front. Usual side. Looking at the spine. Usual dust jacket spine, very conventional. And usual dust jacket back. So conventional design patterns used here as per normal Valiant. We've got the front blurb there. We have purple end pages again. And we have a back blurb of the creators as per normal. Let's take in the dust jacket off. What I will mention about this, I know I don't normally often talk very much about the build quality for these, because the build quality for these is very consistent and very good. What I will say is the build quality for this one feels a little bit strange, in that it feels like this board here is very slightly wider than it needs to be. So it feels like, I don't know if you guys can see, it feels like the actual boards here kind of splay out a little bit, and they could have done with trimming a couple of millimeters off this bit to make it narrow and fit in. And as a result, the spine feels a little bit saggy, I think. This is the first time I've really noticed this on a Valiant Deluxe Edition, which is why I'm mentioning it now. I don't know if it's unique to mine, if this is a standard feature for all Ninjak Volume 2s, but I just wanted to let you guys know. On the front we've got the standard foil blocking in purple foil, and the spine, despite being slightly bigger than it needs to be, is the standard spine with Deluxe Edition 2 written there. Okay, other than that, the bind quality is great. It's nice and strong, decent glossy paper, very well put together. So let's have a look at the mapping. And what we have here is the first arc, which is the Siege of King's Castle, issues 14 to 17. The second arc, Fist and the Steel, issues 18 to 21. The last arc, issues 22 to 26, are the Seven Blades of Master Dark. And the Fall of Ninjak and Other Tales is the Book of Death, Ninjak One Shot, Ninjak 27, and then Ninjak 0. Which is listed here in two parts, but we'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so with that, let's dive straight into it. We have the first arc here with the standard Valiant sort of title page showing you what the covers are. This was a great story, and the reason I like it so much is because it stars Roku, who you'll remember from the last time that I talked about Deluxe Edition Volume 1. I love Roku as a character, never come across her before, never even heard of her before. Think she's great, and to have more Roku related stories in Ninjak I thought was absolutely excellent. Really glad, really enjoyed it. Good artwork, good story. Roku is a great antagonist. Some pretty cool stuff happens in the story, as you can see here. And yeah, I thought this Siege of King's Castle was great. One thing I will point out is that for pretty much every issue in this, it has the same quirk that all the single issues in Deluxe Edition Volume 1 had, which is that it has an A story, and then it has a B story, which is a much shorter story at the end of it, which is an anthology. So, for example, here you have the normal story, then you have Lost Files, and the Lost Files is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages long. And all of these B stories continue on in the next issue, and the next issue, and the next issue. So in that sense, this is very much structured like an anthology. If you want to understand a bit more about anthologies, I talk about this kind of nomenclature and vocabulary in one of my other videos about the vocabulary of comics. But yeah, so this continues the anthology structure that's been prevalent throughout the first dozen or so issues, which is an A story and a B story. Okay, so continuing on. Again, just nothing much to add about this particular arc other than it's really good. Really enjoyed it, some great cover art, and of course Roku, as you can see here. I'm not going to really put in any spoilers other than just to say it's highly recommended. And here we are. So then we get into the next one, the Fist and the Steel, which is the next arc. Now this is quite interesting because what we see here is this is Ninjak, and obviously he's a lot older. And the rationale behind this is that Ninjak in this is, well, he is much older. This is set very much in the future. And as such, it's one of those stories which sort of hints at various events that have or haven't happened that we've seen or that have been foreshadowed before, and it's quite a cool, quite a decent story. Don't think necessarily Old Man Logan. It's not that sort of future story where everything's gone terrible, or at least it's not reached that point yet. It's just a future older Ninjak. And as such, it's actually done very, very cleverly, because not only is Ninjak interacting with this guy here, Gilad, the Eternal Warrior, who we've seen before, but as well as that, this story is actually very cleverly interlaced with this narrative. So this is Ninjak in the modern day, in the current story. And actually, whilst it seems like these are just two completely unrelated narratives in the first issue or so, what happens is, as the story arc, The Fist and the Steel, continues, you start to realise that actually these two narratives are very much interdependent and interwoven, which is pretty cool. And again, as I say, A story, and then you have the B story, The Lost Files, which again continues on from the previous. In terms of this, the B stories here for The Fist and the Steel is again interwoven in with the A stories. So I guess structurally speaking, is quite a complex narrative, which is to be expected, I suppose, when you're dealing with Matt Kindt. But it works extremely effectively and extremely well. It jumps across different time periods. It has different vignettes and different story threads. It's composed extremely well, as you can see here, in terms of sort of the composition of the pages, the artwork, the panels, the word balloons. It's really good. Really enjoyable, really quite clever. It's got some cool action bits. Again, I'm not going to really provide many spoilers because I don't like to do that. And it's a bit of a twisted, convoluted, that's not even a word, convoluted and tangled kind of web of different story threads through different chronologies and different perspectives. But it worked extremely well, and I found it very coherent. So with that in mind, that is the end of that arc. We then have the next arc, which is the 7 Blades of Master Dark. Now, I didn't really know who Master Dark is. I suspect now, having read this, that he's a bad guy from the Shadowman universe. That said, I haven't read any Shadowman as yet. And that said, you don't need to read any Shadowman to understand this. At least I don't think you do. It felt very much like he was just a magical bad guy. And as long as you get on board with that, you're fine reading this. At least that's how I felt reading this. So, first things first, the very first issue, issue 22, is the first issue of this arc, but it's called Silent Standalone. And in that sense, it's an issue that has a purely action and visual spectacle, but no dialogue whatsoever. In that sense, it reminds me of the early 2000s event that Grant Morrison pioneered in Marvel called Nuff Said, where basically for 1 month, every single Marvel comic had a wordless issue like this. So you'll see all action, all framing, all very dynamic, but with no text whatsoever. As I recall, Grant Morrison cheated a little bit on their issue, which was New X-Men, by having some word balloons on the very last page, which similarly we see here. We see literally 1 or 2 words here and there, but that's it. Anyway, after that wordless issue, which is important because it kind of leads into the 7 Blades of Master Dark, we then actually have the proper Master Dark issues per se. In terms of that, this is, a lot more Roku, which I absolutely love. Frankly, I could do with a limited series purely on Roku. I could do with much more on that. And having Roku here in a story that kind of got Ninjak as a protagonist, fantastic, really enjoyed it. Solid, very, very consistent artwork throughout, as you can see. Storytelling is good. The sort of idea and the plot behind it is good. All very solid, all very interesting, and genuinely recommended. Yeah, I enjoyed this a great deal, I have to say. Right, so that's the end. Where are we? That's the end of this arc. I'm flicking through relatively quickly because I don't want this video to get too long, and also I'm conscious of giving away spoilers accidentally. So that's the end of that arc, and then we move into the very last bit, which is the Fall of Ninjak and Other Tales. Yes, I am aware there is a typo here. I don't know why there's a typo here. I don't know why they've done that. Sloppy, Valiant. Sloppy. Not happy with that at all. I'm not going to fix it, because to fix it would involve removing this page, having the whole thing split apart by my binder, having another page printed, which is relatively straightforward but still a bit of a hassle, having to edit that in Photoshop, having that printed, having that sliced and having it rebound, it would cost me like, I don't know, 60 quid, £80, something like that, just to fix a page. I will survive without it. So I will leave that as it is. Annoying though, sloppy. Anyway, so then we have Book of Death, Fall of Ninjak. This is a one-shot. I'm not going to say much about this other than it feels very much like this is a setup for 4001 AD, because what they mention in this is the birth of New Japan, which has been mentioned in a couple of Book of Death one-shots so far. And New Japan, I know, is a critical environment for the 4001 AD miniseries or maxi event or whatever you want to call it. I haven't read the Book of Death event yet, and I haven't read 4001 AD yet, but I've read enough of these one-shots scattered around the various deluxe editions to start getting a bit of a flavour as to what that's aiming towards. So anyway, so that's the Book of Death one-shot, which is fine. You can or cannot read that here if you want. And then we have the very final issue of Ninjak, which is issue 27. So issue 27 is a decent, pretty standalone, self-contained story. Yeah, it was good. It was just Ninjak by the numbers, basically. And then it ends here. That's fine. I mean, really, it could have been set at any time in any scenario. It felt like a bit of a filler issue, but it was decent artwork. And then we get to Ninjak Zero, which is the last issue of this series. So Ninjak Zero is split into two halves. We have the first half of the story here, which is kind of a bit of a filler issue in that it's sort of a retrospective of Ninjak's personal life combined with some contemporary events. And it has this interesting framing technique of having the top half and the bottom half as two different threads that are, pardon me, that are read simultaneously. So yeah, there we have Roku again, which is cool. Yeah, and that's how this is kind of framed, and it ends there. Then you have the other bit of issue 0, which is a short set of pages, page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's it. And then it says Colin King, that's Ninjak's real name, will return in Ninja K, which is the next series we're going to be looking at. And that is the end of issue 0. Then we have the standard gallery, decent artwork, DVD style extras. No script breakdowns in this one, which is a bit odd, just mainly just kind of artwork per se, which is fine. And then that takes us to the end of Ninjak Deluxe Edition Volume 2. In terms of what we're going to be looking at next week, hopefully it's reasonably self-evident. We'll be looking at the limited series Ninja K, which is Ninja-K, which is from the White Spine Valiant era, so more contemporary, more recent Valiant. And that's what I'll be looking at next time and talking through. So if you're reading along, please read that for our next Valiant till the last video. Until then, thanks for watching.
Alright, thanks for watching everybody. As always, please like, comment, subscribe. As always, please follow me on Twitter at @IamThomasJudge, where I will post a daily review of whatever comics I've been reading. You can get an idea of what I'm up to on the channel. And as always, please support the channel by heading over to Amazon.com and checking out my prose novel about superheroes. It's a completely original piece of work. The first episode in it is called Arrivals, and the series as a whole is called No Gods or Kings. You can find an excerpt of that on my website, nogodsorkings.com. Until next time, everybody, stay classy.